I have to remind myself all the time that we are there in service of the story. If there's no story, then there's no point in us being there. Even when they say there's no dialogue or this is MOS, I will say, okay, and I'll roll anyway. It's literally free. It doesn't cost anything to hit the record button.
We make the most overcomplicated solution to a problem that doesn't exist, and maybe there's actually a cheaper, faster, and better way to do it.
It gets even more weird. It was a very physical number, and at one point they got on top of like 4 pinball machines and they were spinning around. And that's our job, is be as invisible as possible while achieving the creative goal. Did I blow your mind? I blew your mind again.
Several times already this call. Today, we have the honor of sitting down with the legendary Phillip Palmer. He's a sound mixer who has contributed to some of our favorite shows in the world, and ones you definitely know. Whether it be the entire run of Glee, Better Call Saul, the movie El Camino, Pluribus, and a number of other incredible projects, he knows his stuff. Today, we sit down with him to learn about everything sound, from set culture to the technical stuff to the artistry. This is not a conversation you're gonna wanna miss. Phillip, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. This is the Just A Clothespin Podcast, where we're hoping to learn a bit about filmmaking from you today. We ourselves are film students, and we're continuing to seek how to make movies. We both fell in love with this art form when we were tremendously young, and since then, we've had the honor to go to art school, and it's been a really cool experience. But we've also been on some sets that we felt a little mistreated on, and some of them didn't live up to what we had dreamed it was. And so we've kind of made it our goal to build spaces and create spaces that can be what the kid versions of us thought movie making was. And we listened to some of your previous interviews, and the energy and the positivity you have about this, you're very much the kind of person we want to be around, we want to meet, we want to learn from. So we're really excited to have you here with us today.
Well, thank you. I'm honored.
I want to start back with how you first kind of fell in love with movies. Because in one of your interviews, we heard that you went to film school, but even then, you didn't actually think that's what you would do as a career. Tell me about how you got there.
I would say that initially I was very interested in still photography, and that wasn't in the school that I ended up going to, had a small track for photography, but it wasn't a major. And so I was a musician just by the fact that I thought playing guitar was cool. And so when I wanted to focus on photography and that sort of thing, it led me to the radio, TV, film division, or film part of the university that I was attending. And so at that point in time, it was a Bachelor of Fine Arts at Southern Methodist University for radio, TV, film, but there wasn't really a still photography pathway. And I quickly became, by just the sheer fact that I was a little bit of a gearhead, I was always the person that people said, well, can you run sound? And
yeah,
and I'd always just say, sure. And so I became very involved with all of the student productions and the TV station and everything there. And I was always just the sound guy, and I hung out with camera folks, the people that wanted to be camera people and lighting and editors and everything. But it was just me and a couple of other people that had interest in sound. And I'm not quite sure why that was the case, but as I worked my way through school, I was still a musician and doing that sort of thing. And as you got further in school, there were less and less. So by the time I was a junior, there was probably 2 or 3 people total in the school. And so, I mean, I wasn't terribly driven to be a sound professional as I left college. Many people said it's good to find your, find out what you want to do. And I just was I was a little bit of a boat lost at sea, and I continued to be a musician, but I always, and this is a lot like what we're doing right now. I sought to have relationships with people, friendship, professional or otherwise, that were very interesting to me, and they were all studio engineers, film production, sound mixers, which is what I do, and I developed a relationship with them, much like what you're doing now, and then at some point, one of those people called me and said, I've got this thing that's, we're not going to make much money, but would you like to come help me on it? And one thing led to another, and 37 years later, I'm on a podcast with you guys.
Okay, I have so many questions. Just follow up.
Good.
We have to go back to music. You said guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I am maybe the least musically talented person that I know, but I love music.
Right.
So my college roommate played guitar, and I was just kind of in the room, and he was a Johnny Marr fan and loved Kurt Cobain and had a Fender. He's a Fender Strat.
He has a few, but yes.
Okay. I know that he loves Fender, and he's a guitar head and knows the lingo and everything. And we were shooting a movie at one point where I was to play guitar, and he painstakingly tried to teach me guitar in an afternoon.
In an afternoon.
In an afternoon, like a song, 3 chords maybe. Couldn't do it.
No, I think you crushed it. You crushed it.
Oh. It was unfortunate. But all of that to say, the intersection of sound and music for us in film is something we can relate to. We have records all over our walls, but music plays a huge role when we're writing, when we are ideating and creating mood boards, when we're thinking about or pitching an idea to our fellow filmmakers. This sounds like John Williams' score and or something like that. So that's really cool, and that helps. That helps us ground our
music evokes emotion.
storytelling.
It brings you to a place where you can think outside of the box. You can be looking at a page, but then you introduce music to it, and it takes you somewhere else. It's a wonderful thing.
That's right.
And that's how I started.
Great.
And I cut my teeth out on the road doing. I eventually was that guitar player that figured out he wasn't as good at playing guitar as he was at being a sound engineer. And I truly love and appreciate all those musicians that put up with me in my discovery period.
That's awesome.
And then I became a sound man, and working with bands and sound companies and touring. And in my mind, it was this vast period of time where I did all this, and now recollection, it was just a few short years. And but I did some really cool things and toured and did stuff like that. And then I got that call to work on a TV movie, and the people that hired me promised to help me learn the path, and that's what led me.
Yeah. Was there anything from your background as a musician that actually kind of uniquely informed you as a sound mixer, or any of those next steps you took in film?
Yeah, most definitely. I would say not initially, but certainly later. One of the jobs on a set is sound utility. It's usually the third person, and when I started, that third person would always be in charge of some music playback if it was ever needed. So, on the second movie that I ever worked on, it had a huge music component to it, and so I did the playback, which would be playing the music for them to lip sync to, and so I learned there was this little thing that I had a shorthand when they would ask for, do you want this part? And I would know exactly what they're talking about. I had some musical knowledge which helped me in understanding what the musicians on camera, frequently the music coordinator or music editor that was there, we could communicate, and I could, quickly understand what he wanted me to do. And then that expanded as my career went on. And then a bunch of years ago, I did this TV series called Glee, and there was a lot of music. And so I had
We are familiar with Glee.
I had a big team, and so it truly helped in that sense, because a lot of times the creators or the Ryan Murphy team, or if it was a director coming in, or if it was just the music team coming in, we would have to develop a game plan as to how we're going to approach this scene or sequence musically, and music for camera. And it was also, there's weird things that people didn't really understand, or people that aren't in our specific skill set understand, that when we started Glee and that movie and many other movies after that, we shot all those on film. And there's a thing, especially when you're shooting television. If you're, television, I'm going to get a little technical here. Television frame rate is basically 23.97856, frames per second. It's a derivative. And so film is shot at 24 frames. But when you record something at 24 frames and then they slow it down, it's pretty much imperceptible to the viewer. It becomes progressively more important from that cut point on, that you have done something to the music, because the music was recorded at 24, but now you've slowed it down and it's not going to match the lips.
Right.
And so I had to be the ambassador of explaining how we're going to fix that and do that sort of thing. And so those are some of the tools and skill set that you develop over periods of time. Nowadays, we don't have to worry about it that much, because we shoot on for the most part for television and often for film, because it has its home on streaming later. We shoot all natively at the same frame rate, so it doesn't matter. But back in the day, we shot at 24. They slowed it down. They did all these things, and in order for the music to work, on the hundreds and hundreds of music videos that I play music back for, I've had to tweak it and do these things to it. You have to slow it down, resample it, do all these things that the creative folks, they don't need to know that. It's best that I don't ever talk to them about it. We just do it. And then they look on their monitor. It sounds great. It looks great. And then when they get an editorial, it sounds great. It looks great. And that's our job, is be as invisible as possible while achieving the creative goal. Did I just blow your mind?
That's
a little bit. That stressed me out. I'm thinking about all the musical sequences in Glee now, where I never thought about that before. I never thought about the goodness gracious. I mean, Spencer did theater for. Go ahead.
I did. Since 6th grade, I did theater. I was actually on the tech side, and so I would build and design sets, run the shows from backstage, and that's also where I learned how to be able to do stuff like building this set. But Glee was a huge, huge part of our world, especially with the actors. That's how I found out about it. Is they kept telling me about this show Glee, and I was like, yeah, I'll check it out. 2 episodes in, I was like, all right, I'm buckling up for 6 seasons, because we got to do this all, and it's amazing. So that's incredible.
Yeah, we had a good time. It was a gigantic show, in scope. You'd see it, and it was just the kids in a school or whatever, but the machinery behind creating that.
I can only imagine.
That production was pretty massive.
Yeah. And to be full circle, then they did the live performance of Glee too. So even with you having going live to film and then it going film to live is pretty cool.
Yeah, and that was a completely different team that put that tour together, both tours. But I worked with them because we had because we had the music was the common factor, and so we worked with them to produce the show. So yeah, I got involved in that show in the weirdest way, and this goes back to that maintaining relationships with people and doing the things like you guys are doing, sending emails out and just asking questions, and never be afraid to ask a question because, I played on a softball team with, Hollywood. We've got all these things, we got like the TV softball league and all, it's fun.
That's awesome.
And I played on a softball team with a producer, and he called me one day and he said, so I got this show, and it's going to have a whole lot of sound stuff in it. It's going to be, and I'm like, sure, no problem. And I show up, and then, how many years later, we were still doing that show together. And it was just because, I played on a softball team with him, and he well, he seems to know
we
what
need
he's
to
doing.
join a softball league.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's my takeaway.
Wait. Yes. First of all,
Primetime
would
softball.
be terrible,
league.
but that'd be
That's
awesome.
what that's what it was called in Southern California. It's still around, but yeah. They've got hockey leagues. They've got it's just fun.
Wow.
What?
I totally didn't know about that.
Oh yeah, it's the
networking.
It's the deep secret of Southern California. All of our social networking through sports and various other things.
Okay, so zooming out for a second, when thinking about, I guess you're showing up day one for a show like Glee or even some of your more modern TV shows, do you show up and just kind of know sound? Like we've taken sound classes and we've learned about phasing, we've learned about mixing and staying within the zone, but to some degree I imagine you're massaging and you know waves in a different way, especially when you've worked with the talent before. You know their voices, you know how they're going to carry a song or how they're going to say that line. So is that just time? Is that energy? Is that just your expertise on set? Or is that...
I think it's a little bit of everything. I mean, it's we're expected, when we're hired to do a job, to know what we're doing. So,
Sure. Of course.
And often they don't nobody ever asks me, do you know how to do this? Or how are you going to do this? How are you going to do this? No, nobody, it's really not their purview. It's my job as a sound mixer to figure out a way to record a show. And for the most part, the approach is similar. But like I'm prepping a thing right now where I know it's a bit of a Western. And so we're going to be out in the dust and the dirt, and there's some water involved, and so I get a period of time before a show to go over the script. On a television schedule, that's compressed very much so, except for maybe the first episode. The first episode, we get a whole bunch of time, and then after that, we have very little time. Yeah, we it's called prep, and we try and get a script and an outline and a concept of what they want, how they want to do this, as early as possible so that we can prepare for it. Our approach is very similar. In a scene, I'm going to try and get it on booms, but I'm also going to be wiring the actors and everything like that. And then there's, we break down the script and we see this scene. Oh gosh, they're going to be in some water. They gotta cross a river, or they're fishing. I did a show recently called The Madison, and we've got two guys that are fly fishing in a river for pages of dialogue, and so. It's not like you can strap a wireless mic pack on their ankle because they're in waders in a river, and RF propagation on water is feet. And so so we've got to prepare for that. So me and my team, we talk about it, and we develop a game plan. Usually that's stays within our team. Because most people, they don't really need to They don't need to know that unless it affects them. And so, which leads me to what I generally do is I reach out to two people specifically before before we get into production. One is, of course, the director of photography, so we can at least have a dialogue of, hey, I'm your sound mixer, and find out if he's got any any difficulties or plans to shoot multiple cameras or whatever. We talk about that. We have a brief discussion about that, and then I get in touch with the costume department. And the cost, I tell this to people all the time. The relationship between sound and costumes is probably one of the most important relationships on a set in our current times, because of the amount of wiring of the actors that we have to do, right? So I reach out and have a little dialogue with the costume supervisor and get looped in on what they call their boards, which is their photographs of their actors in the costume, so we can get a game plan of ahead of time of they're going to wear this on this day, so we can go, okay, well, that's not much clothing. We can, we got to figure out a way to put a mic pack on them and things like that. So there's a lot of little details that you develop an ability and a sense of priority and how you're going to talk to those people. And I think even as students, you realize that things go better when everybody's communicating, right? When everybody's talking, and it's no different out in the world. It becomes a little more siloed because there's so many people and everybody's getting pulled different ways. So sometimes you got to wait for the right time to have conversations with people. But it's really about that. It's really about relationships.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And we've interviewed a few industry professionals, and one of the consistencies that we've heard is the communication between departments and those relationships. One of the elements of that we wanted to talk to you about specifically is your relationship with actors and talent. Because obviously the miking process can be very personal and up close. How important is that, and what are you doing to curate safe spaces for them?
That's a great question. I mean, a lot of times I'm not able to have a conversation with actors before. I can say that I never really have conversations with actors before the day of their filming. I often have conversations and relationships developed with, sometimes if they're very specific talent, with they have a team, and most actors don't, but as they get higher up in their in their level of expertise and their sort of stature, sometimes they have people, and so I find out, like, does actor A have a personal costumer? And often they'll be like, yes, they do. And I'll say, I need that person's information. And so then we'll reach out and we'll find out that Carol Burnett, a perfect example, I've worked with her a few times, and she's got a personal costumer who we get into details of what kind of mic pack that she wears, where she likes to have it, and things like that. And so we can have a head start. And so, yeah, it's important. On that show, The Madison, that I spoke of, same deal with Michelle Pfeiffer. She's got a personal costumer, which she's amazing. And we work with her, so it's really, yeah, we keep talking about it. There's a reason I keep banging the drum of collaboration and communication, because without that, we are, it's a bad day when you have no plan and you show up and then you show
Yeah.
So yeah.
When it comes to child actors specifically, is there then additional considerations
Sure.
on that with how that's handled?
Yeah. I mean, pretty much any actor, we have, when we're wiring them, we always have their costumers with us. And often it's like the costumer, we go, it's better that you do this. You know, I'm not I'm not a person who is one to say we have to put the mic on them. We're going to tell you where it needs to go and how it needs to be affixed and hidden and things like that, so it doesn't impact both the costume or our sound capture. But there's often times where it's just best that we don't do it. Their costumer or their whoever their guardian may be, if it's a child actor or things like that. But we're very conscious of privacy concerns, age concerns, and things like that. And everybody has to. It's just that's part of life, And I would say that nobody on my crew ever takes offense at like, please, now's not the time. Or anything like that. It's like, okay, everybody's got a job to do. That's okay. It gets a little testy sometimes on the day when the day is running long. But everybody's aware that everybody's got a job to do. And that's part of it. And if they're a child actor, then and if they've done this for a little bit, they've been wired up. And for the most part, we don't get. It's rare that I get someone who is young or a first timer. On the shows that I've been on, I've been really lucky enough that most of the people that come through have done it a couple of times. So it's not brave new ground. It's not, what's that, but there have been times in the past,
When thinking about a show like Glee that have massive musical numbers or a lot of movement, are you privy to that sequence to think about if we're putting our arms up, we're going to see the mic or the cord or something show, or we're going to launch the mic pack if we do our spin move or something like that? Does that go into the process when you're micing them?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we get a huge heads up, but we often get a sort of a rehearsal. We did get a rehearsal example, like if there's going to be something that's specifically weird. I remember there was a show where one of our actors, Alex, they had to. It was a very physical number, and at one point, they got on top of like 4 pinball machines, and they were spinning around.
Naturally, yes.
And it was bonkers. And so we got kind of a heads up on things like that. But most of the time, when they're in a big musical dance number, we pull the mics because they are in playback mode at that point in time. I don't need to record anything that's happening, and most of the time they're just heavy breathing and trying to sing along.
Right.
And so we'll have mics on them, and then we'll pull them. It's a lot of interaction, and so we just it's one of those things where no two shots are ever the same. So you have to approach every single one like, all right, let's pull the packs, let's pull the mics. We'll put them back on after this sequence, but this one's better. They're going to roll down the hill. We don't know what's going to happen when they roll down the hill. Let's clear that gear off of them so they don't get hurt, things like that. Am I spinning your brain a little bit thinking about how
you are giving us so much to think about? And I'll even say, like, some of these questions are a little selfish.
I was going to say, we gotta
we're
give
working
some more
on
context.
a film right now that is the most ambitious thing we have ever done, and we're really excited about it. And the 3 kind of main characters that it follows are all child actors. And so we're trying to make sure we create a space for them that is safe, but also create a space for the sound team where they can have an amazing time on set. They can feel like they have all the resources and all the support they need. So everything you're sharing with us today is really, really amazing and helpful.
That's awesome.
And hopefully to people listening as well. I do want to I have a little section in my outline I made that I'm kind of calling like technical misconception section.
Okay.
Which might not be the greatest name, but the reason I wanted to do this is there's a few topics in sound that I have confusion about, and I feel like collectively as a peer group we might not fully understand. And so some of these are a little rapid fire, but I'd love to get your thoughts on some of these. So the first one I wanted to ask was about shooting MOS. The extent of, I think, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'll just speak for myself, of my understanding and that I've seen on set, and this doesn't inherently sound right, is that the only filter for whether or not we're shooting sound is there a character that speaks that is in the frame of the shot? And I imagine it's more nuanced than that. Mm-hmm. What's a helpful way to think about whether or not we're shooting sound for a given moment?
I rarely don't roll. I even when they say there's no dialogue or this is MOS, I will say, okay, and I'll roll anyway.
I thought you might say something like that.
And almost every time they're thankful that I did, because you can grab something from it. Even you get the sense of like, if it's like a stunt thing, you get the sound of the impact, which you may augment or replace later, but you know exactly when it happened. So they're grateful that there's a track.
That's great.
Every bit of gunfire that I've recorded on all my umpteen shows, they replaced most of it. I would say almost all of it. But they use my track as the guide of where to replace it. So, and I can't tell you how many times someone in production says, well, this is MOS, there's no dialogue. And I never take offense. I don't try and tell them how to do their job. I just usually smile and say, we're just going to roll anyway. And then they go, oh, okay. Seems useless. And then we'll do it anyway. And a lot of times, the editor thanks me later and says, thank you for rolling, because there was information in there that I never would have known without the guide track that you recorded.
Yeah. So
my bit of guidance that I would give on that is smile, but always throw it in a record. It's literally free. It doesn't cost anything to hit the record button. And if anything, you can even say things, even direction that the director may be shouting at the actors and everything. That's important too, because the editor can hear that and go, oh, that's what he's trying, look to the left, you hear a noise, right. Things like that may be directorially part of the creative process, but without you rolling, never gets captured.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, next up in technical misconceptions is we wanted to ask you, where do you like to physically be on set? Does it make sense to be right next to whatever is happening in the actors and the performances, or is it better to have your own station a little further away or something in between?
That has evolved over time. I would say that when I first started, and it wasn't with everyone, because there's a couple of, one specifically, a phenomenal sound mixer who is legendary. He would mix from the camera, from the truck, off stage, even, like way away. But for the most part, when I started the business, the sound team and the camera team and everybody was very tight, very close to set. As the job for me has evolved, I have moved further and further away, not too far. I usually like to be not in between the director and the scene. and the cameras. So I generally will be a little bit behind what we refer to as video village, which is where everybody's watching everything. So I'm a little removed, not too far, but close enough that if I need to dive in there and explain something that has happened or something that is relevant or important, that I'm not having to run a whole long way.
Right.
And I need to have the director and anybody who may need contact with me. I need to be within accessibility. So I don't like being right up on it, but I like to be just a little bit removed, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
How mobile are you when you have your full setup? Are you on a cart, or is something on wheels, or is this like, I need the utility to grab this part, and how quickly can you be like, I gotta go at a moment's notice?
Pretty quick. Everything's
Pretty
on
quick,
wheels. Yeah. My cart is a stand-up cart. On it is everything that I need to mix and receive sound and see video, retransmit video to video assist, distribute sound to the director and the creative team and anybody else that needs to listen. Also access for my boom operators. So I mean, my cart, I'm also can be on battery for extended periods of time. So I can literally go, oh, I got to move, and I'll unplug and I'll just push right into,
Sure.
sometimes there'll be, this happens to be like, oh, we weren't going to see over there, but now we're going to see there and
Yeah.
you're there. So, and then it'll be like, great. And I just grab and wheel backwards. So yeah, I'm as mobile as I can be. Did I blow your mind? I blew your mind again. Yeah.
You several times already this call. This one over here, Tay, he loves building like cases, carts. He's incredible at organizing, and so he's gonna have a field day after this.
I'm just thinking about, I've been on a few sets that were outside, and there was a very specific cart that they had with the different slots, and they had a holster for the boom. And I was fascinated by this because they were the first people to move, even before camera, even before costume. They were the first department as a whole to move, and they were the fastest to move.
Yep.
So it's interesting, as I'm talking with you about your experience, it's just visualizing that and building that is, I imagine that saves time, energy, but that also, that brings you back to set.
Yes, definitely. And it is definitely advantageous to be as mobile as possible. Now we can be pretty big, but ability to move is really everything, right? And then I also have, and this is what happens as you sort of, the longer you're in it, the more sort of profiles of carts you have. Like I have a main cart, which is what I like to be on as much as possible. It has all the bells and whistles. I've got, my computer on there. I got a large monitor. I've got iPads that monitor my wireless receivers. I've got a script, iPad for script. I've got all of my receivers. I've got, a recorder. I've got a mixing panel. I've got all of these things on this cart. Well, sometimes when they say we're going to be up on that hill, and I look at it and I'm like, I don't want to push this up there. I don't want to put this in a 4-wheel drive buggy and have it fall over. So I've got a smaller rig, which doesn't have as much of all those things, has most of all those little things, but it doesn't have a lot of the bells and whistles. And I've got a smaller version, which can go in a buggy or, in a 4-wheel drive mule or something like that. And it can get me up to that hill. Then there's another level of you can't have anything on wheels. You're going to have to wear it. And so I've got a scaled down version, again, of something that I can wear. So, as you get down to that from large cart to wearable, your ability, the amount of actors that you can wire, they start diminishing. It starts cutting into your ability. But sometimes we're up on a hill with a person, doing a couple of lines of dialogue. You don't need everything. So you can grab something smaller that does the job. And, everything's coordinated. Everything is running the same time code. So I've got, clock boxes on everything so that it doesn't matter what I'm recording on. They can sync it up to the camera. And so that becomes my choice of like, I don't want to be on that rig. I'd like to be on that rig. And then all of those two, the smaller rig and then the wearable rig, can break down. For instance, if we're like in a car and we're driving around,
Right.
we're doing dialogue in a car and things like that. So, and then even it gets even more weird. Like sometimes they go, well, the actors are just going to drive. And they're going to put a camera on the hood and they're just going to drive and there's nowhere for you to be. So I've got a rig that I can drop in the back seat and I can kind of set a conservative level on a microphone in the car and maybe a couple of body mics. And I just throw it in and it's same time code as everything before. I just hit record and I go, see you when you're done. And then they come back and I, check it, make sure. But yeah, it gets pretty deep. It's fun though. I mean, every day.
Yeah.
I say this all the time.
The adaptability.
There's never two instances that are the same. So every day we're just problem solving, and that's the fun part.
It's always an adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I've got one last technical-ish sort of question for you, which I wanted to talk to you about ADR. We recently took a sound class, and we were told by the professor that it's starting to actually become common for there to be ADR booths on set, so the actors immediately go and record on that. And perhaps I am ignorant, but I guess I understood ADR to be something that was like last resort if something has gone terribly wrong.
Repair,
right,
to some degree.
How should we be thinking about the role of ADR in dialogue capture?
Personally, I wouldn't think about it until there's a problem. Now, I record a lot of wild lines, which are I have been told many times that they would prefer to squeeze a wild line into a place where they would do ADR, because I usually grab it on set right at the moment that they were doing it. And it's one of those things that you sort of learn as you go. And it's that thing of diminishing return. Say you have a scene that just was absolutely loved by everyone, maybe except the sound guy. And because for any number of reasons, there was a car horn that beeped right on somebody's line that you're not going to be able to, clip out of there. Maybe they put their wine glass or coffee cup down right on a line, and that clunk is baked into that word because they happened at the same time. There's any number of reasons. Set of keys falls. I can't tell you how many things can go wrong in that perfect scene that was perfect for everyone else. And so sometimes you have to go, the whole scene was great except for this one little section in there. And so I'm very specific when I'm recording I'm following the script. And if there's something that happens and we're feeling like, oh, this is like take 7 and I don't think anybody's going to want to do another one after this. And this is going really well. And then something happens. You hear a plane happens or something like that. So you kind of weigh do you tell them that it would be better if we did it again, or do you just ask for the assistant director to quiet the set down for you to grab a couple of lines wild, just record them doing those lines that were in that section, so that the editor can take that recording and slide it in. And sometimes that ends up solving the problem entirely, and they never have to go to ADR because it was recorded on the same microphone, the same location, same actor, same everything. It was just 2 minutes later. and uh, and it gives the editor something to work with, even if they want to replace it later. They don't have to listen to that clunk or car horn or anything on their whole editorial process. They can go ahead and put something else, and then they can make a note on that. This line needs to be replaced. I will say that almost every sound editor that I know is amazing at creating a Frankenstein piece together line from multiple takes, and they make it sound great, and they say you might want to ADR that, and then they'll do the ADR and they like what the sound editor did from the original. It sounds better. It's got the same it's got the same ambience. It's got the same microphone, everything. So I haven't had a set where we've had a ADR facility at our disposal in a long time. That has existed. There are services that really did a whole bunch of that, where they had a lot of trailers and they parked them on sets and they could do that. I'm seeing that less and less now. It's because there's not that much time. There's just not, it takes time. They got to go build it. Yeah. They got to go do all these things. And it's real quick to do a wild line. And most of the time that's going to solve your problem. That was a big answer to a real short question.
That's great.
That's great. And I think it points to like the idea that sometimes we make the most overcomplicated solution to a problem that doesn't exist. And maybe there's actually a cheaper, faster, and better way to do it. So that's cool. I appreciate you sharing that.
There's often only that's the triad, right? Cheap, fast, and good. You can usually only get two. You can, get cheap and fast, but it won't be good. You can be good and cheap, but it won't be fast. But things like grabbing wild lines or getting ambience. I get ambience on location all the time. I don't go and ask them for it. I just go do it. Sometimes I will need an ambience track. People call it room tone, whatever. Usually there's enough silence in one of the takes that they can grab it from that. But every now and then I'll be like, this sounds different now than it did when we started the scene. We started the scene early in the morning, and there were, it was that early morning sound. But by the time we finished, it was that daytime sound, which is, there's just a lot of, low level ambience. And so I'll say, I need to record an ambience track, a room tone. But I try and grab that stuff sort of silently and in the background, send the boom operator downriver or something like that.
I like the idea of just the satellite departments. When I've been on sound, I feel like I'm often asking for permission to do things or to disrupt. I treasure this podcast, and I treasure our conversations with our guests, because not only do I feel like we're all growing as filmmakers, but I also get to remember the moment and pinpoint exactly where the solution is for the next time. So this is exciting, because I'm solving problems that I've had in our conversation. So this is huge, and I thank you. When it comes to some of your interviews, we were watching a handful of them where you talk about leadership and you talk about the culture of set. And something that I have written down in my little book here that you ask your director and some of the people on set is, are we telling your story? Or are we telling your story to the best of your ability? Yeah, I forget exactly how you phrase it, but are we telling your story? And I like this idea that you have this holistic understanding of storytelling, and this is something that we're trying to create with our project. This is something we're trying to create with our storytelling in general. So to not only see you as an industry professional engaging in that and taking the time to ask those questions, but also knowing that can either be rewarded or seen as respectful or seen as just, this is a positive person on set, is really exciting for us to see, because that's who we are as filmmakers and people. but that also is really huge for us on a creative level when we're trying to tell the best story possible. So do you have any guidance or advice for people who are trying to get to positions of either leadership or just the heads of departments or spaces where we are in the driver's seat to be some of those change makers? Asking that question is sometimes difficult.
Yeah.
But we want to be able to do that.
Yeah. I have to remind myself all the time that we are there in service of the story. If there's no story, then there's no point in us being there, right? It's literally the ultimate job descriptor, right? And so to the best of our ability to serve the story. Now, I will say this: when you get into a professional level, it's everybody's job. It's we're not. It's not school. It's not a bunch of folks making a passion project. It's a job, and so we have to really be careful, because a lot of people that they look at it. I will say this: a lot of folks look at it. It's a job, and when I'm done, I go home, and that's fine. It's great. That has worked for thousands and thousands of people. But for me, and for where I'm at, and where the people that I like to work with, it's a little more. And it is being part of a team that services a story. And
That's so cool.
we are often hired to do, when you get on and your resume starts getting longer, not every job that you do, not every story that you're going to tell is a favorite. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like, yeah, I'm available, and so we still have to get our head into that position of, we're here to service the story. And so that leads me to those conversations that I have with if the writer's there. I love hearing the difference. Sometimes it's no different, but sometimes it's different, of the writer's interpretation of how it's being done. And then talking to the director, and the director, takes that story and then starts working with it and creates it into something of their own. And so seeing that happen is a lot of fun. And it's some of the folks that I've worked with in the past, it's a blast to watch. And then to have a conversation with them about how we doing, where are we? Are we on the good side of the curve? Are we on the back side of the curve? And it's I don't know. I feel incredibly lucky, and I'm fortunate. I know that, so to be able to have these conversations with really cool people. But it is ultimately the ultimate job descriptor. We are there to service a story. And sometimes what we want is more than what they want us to do.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta play that, okay.
Yeah.
I think you're my hero, Phil.
I can't tell you how excited that makes us to hear that. It all comes down to story for us, and making sure that every single person who is a part of telling that story is well taken care of. Like, those are our two guiding principles when it comes to how we try to build our stuff. And we've had some conversations where people will kind of tell us to back off on some of those things and say, oh, that's just how the industry is. That's a phrase we hear a lot. And it's been hard because we've continued to try our best to reject that and be like, I think we can tell great stories and take care of our people and have everyone leave it having felt the magic of being there. And it's amazing to hear from you that is your outlook, and you've been able to inhabit spaces where that's the case. And from listening to you talk about it, it seems like one of those spaces for you is Vince Gilligan's projects.
Yeah, for sure.
And you kind of describe working on them as there's very much this team dynamic. This is not his project. This is not the studio's project. This is everyone's project. It's not a, did you get it? It's a, did we get it? What about those projects makes it so meaningful for you and makes and allows you to feel as connected with the story and the larger mission that everyone's working towards?
I think it's the relationships and also the sort of agency that they give us. There's a lot. I mean, when I first started working with Vince was when we started the first season of Better Call Saul, and I was hired by someone who only did the first season with them, but he had done all of Breaking Bad, and I was brought in. I was just available, and I was working on Glee at the time, and it was going to be in between the season 5 and season 6 was when we shot the first season of Better Call Saul, and my meeting with them was literally I met them probably 3 days before we started shooting. I just kind of fell into that one, and I'm forever grateful. By the way, and I remember our first meeting being so friendly and just, hey, we're about to go on this ride. We're so happy you're going to be here with us. If there's anything that you need or whatever, they said, we're not sure if we'll be able to give it to you, but we'll try. I mean, they were brutally honest. They're like, sometimes we say no, but it's not no, go away. It's no right now. And just sort of knowing early on that it was going to be everybody's on this ship together kind of experience, and that has not changed in the more than decade that I've worked with them. It's been really a lot of fun. Now we're doing like a completely different brainscape of a show with Vince, very different than a little show about a lawyer. And we would say that a lot. It's a little, Better Call Saul was a little show about a lawyer.
A little show.
It was not little at all.
That's so funny.
That's so stressful.
Yeah, so stressful.
It's all good, man.
A lawyer. Pluribus, which we're doing, we did one season of them. We're going to go back this year, I think, to do another one. Huge scope, just like gigantic. We shot all over the world, right? We shot off the coast of Africa. We shot in Spain. We shot in a bunch of different places in the U.S. And it's a big show, but it still had that feeling of, so it's proven to me over and over again that it can happen. Does it happen all the time? Nope. You just we gotta be able to roll with it. And it's like, I say, it's like sometimes you just kind of got to go do your thing, and then maybe they'll appreciate you later. And that has worked for me a lot. So
that's really meaningful. And it is our dream to one day be able to make a set that leaves people with the outlook you have towards his. And so I appreciate you sharing that, because we learn a lot from that. One of the things I think that's really interesting in your filmography is Glee was a show that you worked on for a very long period of time, with the whole run, right?
I did. I missed, I think, 3 episodes because it was that first season of Saul went a couple of weeks long, and I used one of my former crew members on the show stepped up and mixed the first couple of weeks of it. Yeah.
Okay. The reason I bring that up though is I feel like Glee and Better Call Saul have like a parallel in how long they ran and how consistently you were with the same team. Was there anything that happened during Glee, throughout Glee, that you learned about working with a team for that long and on a project that existed through so much time that you were then able to take onto Better Call Saul and the Breaking Bad universe in general, I suppose?
Yeah. I think I have to think about that, but I will say that so I would say to that, one of the things that really became part of my work process developed during that period of time, and that was wait for it to break. So
okay, I need to hear more about this.
Yeah. It's like it sometimes we just have this desire to like I'm all about we try and make every take better than the last one. But sometimes there's a thing that you start to develop of you seeing a problem that's about to unfold. And that problem might or might not happen, but you start to see it develop. And sometimes you have to let it break, let it be a problem first. And I can't give you an exact example of that, but it's one of those things that when you get things going, you develop a sense of being able to massage it or work with it. And then you'll start to see where there's going to be problems, shot problems, maybe how we're approaching it. And then there's this desire to get ahead and do a bunch of extra work that can be maybe focused more at something else, and to keep that focus from going toward. I'm getting really esoteric, and I apologize for that, but it's the ability to sort of see a bigger picture, and the bigger picture is often not always me getting the right way. not always, it's not always great for sound,
Sure.
but that's okay. It's like, I don't, sometimes when there's, we're using a lot of cameras, I can see a better way to do it, but they don't want to do it that way. And it's better off that they don't hear from me to tell them how to do their job. So I find a way to work within the parameters that they've established. And a show I did recently where we shot a lot of cameras. There was a lot of cameras all the time, and it certainly wasn't great for me, but because there was always a real wide camera and a pretty wide camera and then a couple of really tight cameras, and so I can't get a boom mic in there, and it's not going to sound as good as I'd like it. So I try and make the wire sound as good as I can. And would I have gotten a better sound for that scene had I gotten my way? Maybe not. But was it worth doing that extra and causing trouble, and making it harder on a bunch of other people? Was it worth that? No. So I just it's not broken. Let's just stick with it. And that's stuff you develop as your career goes on. That's not something that comes right off the bat. I hope that made sense.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
This is fun. I like answering these questions. These are great.
Oh, that's amazing.
We're so happy you're here. We find ourselves on a lot of our student sets. I think ownership's really important for people, and I'd say hierarchy is rewarded when you get to show it off. And it's something that I really struggle with. We both struggle with, I'd say. I think we're encouraged in a lot of our school settings to make it clear who's in charge, and then have that be the bottleneck, or have that be the artistic or creative thumb drive that plugs into every other department. When I think creative ownership, as we were saying before, making this everyone's project and making this, I don't know. I think the collaboration can be beautiful, especially when it makes everyone creatively uncomfortable to some degree creating that solution. And I think I wish there was more of that in our school and in our storytelling spaces. Like,
yeah. But I also think that's what's so beautiful about conversations like this is hopefully, whoever is listening to this can take something away, and all of the downstream positive changes on sets none of us may ever be on might happen.
I mean, there's sets all the time that are, that I won't say all the time that I'm on, but it happens. It's just, sometimes it's not a lot of fun. It's inherent in the business that it can't be fun all the time. If it were fun all the time, I don't know. I just don't see it. It often it is a job. It's my wife is in the business as well. We met on Glee, as a matter of fact. And
that's amazing.
And she's a costumer. Remember how I told you how good that collaboration?
Oh yeah.
is?
Hey, the ultimate collaboration.
Yeah, some collaboration there. She started the second season, so we'd already started going, but she stayed till the end too. So, but there's she would be the first to say not every job that she does is a lot of fun, and I say the same thing too, because sometimes we've got to make a living, and some people aren't as collaborative. They are very siloed. They like this is how we do things, and then I don't get to have I don't have those fun conversations of, are we telling your story? Sometimes they don't want me to come and ask that. but I would say most of the time I find a moment to say that, and I'm sincere too. It's not, I don't use it as an entry to be able to have a conversation. I want to know, and the other thing is like it, and I get this from the writers, especially, is they're like, it's so much, bigger, or it's better than I thought, I envisioned this, but now it's this, and that's cool to be a part of that storytelling. That's honestly the juice that kind of keeps us going. Is like, are we making people feel like this is, cool?
Yeah. And hey, you can't fake sincerity.
No. No. I mean, people try all the time.
Well, they try, but people can see through it.
I don't think there's anything more romantic than meeting your spouse on Glee. Also, I just think
we
that's
got interviews.
amazing.
Probably one of the podcasts you didn't find was my wife and I are both on a and That's What You Missed on Glee podcast it's called That's What You Missed on Glee, and it's
we somehow didn't find this one.
Kevin
I've not
McHale
seen
and Jenna Ushkowitz, who are two of the original cast members of Glee, have a podcast called And That's What You Missed on Glee, and we're still very good friends, and they brought us both onto their podcast to talk to us about our experience on Glee, and of course, how we met, and so I'll let you find it. It's out there in the world. It's easy to find, and
we will absolutely.
It's kind of funny, and the journey that of our relationship is put forth in that podcast. It's fun. It's a fun hour.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, Philip, we want to be respectful of your time, so we've got kind of one more main question, and then we'll kind of wrap up. But it's a little bit of a fun one. One of the things we wanted to ask you is, what is the most memorable scene that you've ever recorded, and why was it so memorable to you? Memorable to you. We'll say one of the most, so there's
let's
less
do that
pressure.
because I would say that there's a bunch, right?
One of the most memorable.
One that I remember very clearly, and it's pretty age specific, but so I was a sound utility for a long time, right? And there was a movie that I did early on in my career. I did the first Wayne's World movie. Mm-hmm. And awesome. There was a couple of instances on that movie that I will just straight up never forget. One was so cool. The first time that we did a basement scene of Wayne's World, and like we launched into it, and it was like we were on the set of Saturday Night Live. They just went right into it, and we had two booms at that time working on it, so I was booming, and I honestly thought it was the coolest job I had ever had in my life, and that I was, a part of this production. And at that point in time, we were just a week or so into that show. We didn't realize how big that experience was going to be. We shot that show very fast, and it got bigger as we went. 2 times on that particular set, I don't know if there was a show called Star Trek: The Next Generation. It was being shot on a stage over. We shot Wayne's World at Paramount. Next Generation had several stages not close to us. But the creature effects makeup room was right adjacent to where our Wayne's World set was. And there was a door that you could come out of the creature effect makeup chairs and take a shortcut through the stage and make it over to the Star Trek Next Generation set. And while we were filming, this guy just walks through the set with a full Klingon head and like a cut T-shirt and everything. And we never cut. He just walked through the set.
That's incredible.
And everybody just froze, and he like realized
Jaws on the floor
that he's walking through Wayne's World basement. And he walked through, and it was one of it's etched in my mind as one of the funniest moments. And that's on the cutting room floor somewhere. It never made it. So
hey, one day we need to somehow pull that out of the archives.
That is just like one of those things in my brain that I'll never forget.
That's beautiful.
And there was a bunch of things in Better Call Saul that I just thought were some of the coolest scenes ever, and one of which was Michael McKean and this scene where he's at the end of his rope, and I so badly wanted him to win an Emmy for this, because his performance was absolutely riveting when he's just kicking the table, and there's this gas lantern on the table, and he kicks it, and eventually it knocks over and the house burns down and
yeah.
I just, that one sticks in my mind from Saul, and I've got those stories all the time. This is great. You can bring me back and I'll tell you more.
Hey, we'll do a part 2 one day. We love that. I guess the last thing we want to do is thank you. Thank you, of course, for this moment and how much time and wisdom you've been willing to share with us, but also thank you for the smiles.
Yes.
Like watching Glee growing up, you not only brought smiles to me, but like my grandma loves Glee and all my theater friends love Glee.
My parents love Glee.
I and so many of my friends love Better Call Saul and so many of the things you've contributed to. So thank you for creating those smiles, those laughters, the heartbreak, the tears, everything. It's a true honor to have had this conversation.
Oh, fantastic. I this has been a blast, and I I hope we can talk again.
Yeah. Hey, we will absolutely make an effort to stay in touch. We cherish this.
Fantastic.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
All right. Amazing. Well, that is officially a wrap on this episode of the Just a Clothespin Podcast.
C-47.
Okay. C-47.
Oh, here's a game to play on set with a C-47.
Oh, we need this. A game?
See how many C-47s you can attach to somebody's back of their shirt before they
That's genius.
figure out that they have 15 C-47s on the back of their shirt.
Philip, we're going to be good friends. And he and I are now going to
We're
do
doing
that.
Even like
We're
put-
gonna do that
you can hang notes from them. And
In fact, I have...
We have branded C-47s for the podcast.
We've got a bucket here of red C-47s. So
See
I'm
how
just
you
gonna,
Yeah.
clip one on in
Sounds
there.
right.
He definitely
when
didn't
people are
notice.
in the middle of doing their thing and they're not paying attention, just
This is
start
great.
hanging them.
That was incredible. Huge thank you to Philip for joining us. That was an amazing conversation, and we have so much to reflect on from it. If you'd like to listen to another one of the conversations we've had, we recently interviewed Christopher Escobar, the owner of the Plaza Theater and the executive director of the Atlanta Film Society. He had some great stuff to share with us about the state of the industry, and you can click on that episode right now.